Introduction to Trump's 2025 travel ban. On June 4, 2025, President Donald Trump signed a presidential proclamation instituting a new travel ban, reviving and expanding a controversial policy from his first term, 2017 to 2021. The proclamation, effective June 9, 2025 at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, imposes full travel restrictions on nationals from 12 countries and partial restrictions on 7 others, citing national security and public safety concerns. This policy builds on Trump's earlier travel bans, which primarily targeted Muslim-majority nations and faced significant legal and public backlash. The 2025 ban is broader in scope, affecting a diverse range of countries, particularly in Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean, and reflects Trump's ongoing commitment to stringent immigration controls. This analysis will explore the policy's details, including the countries targeted, the stated rationales, exemptions, and the broader socio-political context. It will also address criticisms, legal considerations, and the potential impacts on affected populations, U.S. foreign relations, and domestic communities. By examining primary sources such as White House statements and secondary analyses from news outlets and ex posts, this response aims to provide a nuanced understanding of the travel ban's implications. Background: the evolution of Trump's travel ban policies. To understand the 2025 travel ban, it's essential to contextualize it within Trump's history of immigration policies. During his first term, Trump issued a series of travel bans, starting with Executive Order 13769 on January 27, 2017, titled, "Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States." This order, often referred to as the Muslim ban due to its focus on 7 majority Muslim countries, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, sparked immediate chaos at airports, mass protests, and legal challenges. Federal courts blocked the initial order, leading to revised versions, Executive Order 13780 and Presidential Proclamation 9645, that were eventually upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2018 in Trump v. Hawaii. The court ruled that the president had broad authority under Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act to restrict entry for national security reasons. The first-term bans evolved over time, adding countries like Venezuela and North Korea while removing others, such as Iraq. They were criticized for targeting Muslim-majority nations, with opponents arguing they were discriminatory and lacked clear evidence linking the targeted countries to terrorism risks. In January 2021, President Joe Biden revoked these bans, calling them a stain on our national conscience and reinstating individualized vetting processes. During his 2024 presidential campaign, Trump pledged to reinstate and expand the travel ban, framing it as a critical tool to prevent terrorism and control immigration. On January 20, 2025, his first day in his second term, he signed Executive Order 14161, titled Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. This order directed the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security, the Attorney General, and the Director of National Intelligence to identify countries with deficient vetting and screening processes by March 21, 2025. The June 4 proclamation was the culmination of this directive, reflecting a more structured rollout compared to the chaotic 2017 implementation. Details of the 2025 travel ban. Countries targeted. The 2025 travel ban targets 19 countries, divided into 2 tiers: full suspension of entry, 12 countries, nationals from Afghanistan, Myanmar, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen are barred from entering the United States on both immigrant and non-immigrant visas. This includes tourist B1/B2, student F/M/J, employment-based, and family-based green card categories. Partial restrictions: 7 countries, nationals from Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela face restrictions on specific visa categories, primarily immigrant visas and non-immigrant B1, B2, B1/B2, F, M, and J visas. Consular officers are also directed to reduce the validity period of other non-immigrant visas for these countries where permitted by law. The selection of these countries expands the scope beyond the Muslim majority focus of the 2017 bans. 5 of the original countries, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, reappear, but new additions like Haiti, Chad, and Equatorial Guinea reflect a broader geographic reach, including African and Caribbean nations. Notably, earlier drafts circulated in March 2025 proposed up to 43 countries, including Bhutan and North Korea, but the final list was narrowed to 19, suggesting a strategic refinement to balance security goals with diplomatic and legal considerations. Justifications for the ban: the Trump administration justifies the travel ban on several grounds, emphasizing national security and public safety, inadequate vetting and screening. The proclamation cites deficiencies in the targeted country's ability to verify identities, share criminal or threat information, or cooperate on deportations. For example, Yemen is described as lacking a competent central authority for issuing passports and having inadequate screening measures, exacerbated by ongoing U.S. military operations there since January 2025. Somalia is labeled a terrorist safe haven with limited government control over its territory. High visa overstay rates. The administration points to data from the Department of Homeland Security's DHS overstay report, highlighting countries with significant rates of visa overstays. Chad, for instance, had a 49.54% overstay rate for B1/B2 visas in 2023, while Burundi had a 15.35% rate for B1/B2 visas and 17.52% for F, M, and J visas. These figures are used to argue that nationals from these countries disregard U.S. immigration laws, burdening enforcement systems, terrorism, and security risks. The proclamation references a recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, by an Egyptian national who overstayed a tourist visa as a catalyst for the ban. While Egypt is not included, the incident is used to underscore the risks of inadequate vetting. Countries like Afghanistan, controlled by the Taliban, a designated terrorist group, Iran, a state sponsor of terrorism, and Somalia, home to Al-Shabaab, are flagged for their links to terrorism. Non-cooperation on deportations. Several countries, including Myanmar, Iran, and Cuba, are accused of refusing to accept deported nationals, complicating U.S. immigration enforcement. Haiti is highlighted for high visa overstay rates and the presence of criminal networks following significant migration during the Biden administration. The White House fact sheet emphasizes that these restrictions are country-specific, designed to encourage cooperation from the targeted nations. Trump has stated that the list could be revised if countries improve their vetting processes or meet U.S. security standards, and additional countries could be added if new threats emerge. Exemptions and exceptions. The travel ban includes several exemptions to mitigate its impact on certain groups. Lawful permanent residents, green card holders, individuals with green cards are exempt, avoiding the confusion that arose during the 2017 ban when green card holders were initially detained. Existing visa holders. Visas issued before June 9, 2025 will not be revoked, ensuring that those already approved for entry are unaffected. Special immigrant visas. SIVs. Afghans who assisted the U.S. government during the Afghanistan war are exempt under the SIV program, which has allocated over 50,000 visas since 2009. This exception addresses concerns from advocates like Sean Vandiver of Afghan Evac, who noted that tens of thousands of vetted Afghans could otherwise be blocked. Diplomatic travel and major sporting events. Exceptions apply for diplomatic travel. Adoption cases, immediate family reunification with strong documentation, and athletes or coaches attending events like the FIFA Club World Cup 2025, FIFA World Cup 2026, or the 2028 Summer Olympics. Dual citizens of non-banned countries may still enter provided they travel on a non-restricted country's passport. These exemptions aim to reduce disruption and legal challenges, reflecting lessons learned from the 2017 ban's chaotic rollout. However, the proclamation's broad scope still raises concerns about its impact on families, students, and workers. Implementation and preparation. Unlike the 2017 ban, which was implemented abruptly and caused widespread confusion, the 2025 ban followed a more deliberate process. Executive Order 14161, signed on January 20, 2025, mandated a 60-day review by key agencies, including the State Department, Homeland Security, and intelligence officials. By April 9, 2025, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other officials submitted a report identifying high-risk countries based on vetting deficiencies, visa overstay rates, and security threats. This structured approach, combined with a 5-day lead-up to the ban's effective date, was designed to minimize logistical chaos and strengthen legal defensibility. The administration's planning also considered lessons from the 2017 legal battles. George Fishman, a former DHS attorney, noted that the Supreme Court's precedent in Trump v. Hawaii makes it likely that lower courts will uphold the ban as it aligns with the president's authority under Section 212F. However, critics argue that the inclusion of countries like Haiti and Venezuela may reflect political motivations rather than consistent security criteria, potentially inviting legal scrutiny. Criticisms and controversies. The 2025 travel ban has sparked significant criticism from advocacy groups, Democratic lawmakers, and affected communities. Key points of contention include discrimination and bias. Critics, including Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat Washington, argued that the ban is discriminatory, targeting countries based on ethnicity or political considerations rather than clear security threats. Oxfam America President Abby Maxman called it an attempt to sow division and vilify communities seeking safety and opportunity. The inclusion of Haiti with its large diaspora in the U.S. and Venezuela, despite recent diplomatic thawing, fuels these concerns. Inconsistent criteria. Doug Rand, a former Biden administration immigration official, noted that the selection of the 19 countries lacks a consistent set of criteria, with some inclusions appearing politically motivated or arbitrary. For example, Egypt was excluded despite the Boulder attack, while countries like Equatorial Guinea and Burundi, with relatively low visa issuance, were included. Impact on families and communities. The ban risks separating families, particularly in communities with significant immigrant populations from Haiti, Cuba, and Venezuela. A Somali-American filmmaker in Minnesota expressed fear of traveling abroad, while an Afghan tech worker in California faces prolonged separation from his wife. Economic and diplomatic consequences. The African Union and Venezuela's Foreign Minister Iván Gil Pinto criticized the ban for its potential to harm educational exchanges, commerce, and diplomatic relations. Chad's President Idris Deby retaliated by halting U.S. visa issuance, signaling potential reciprocal measures. Questionable security benefits. Critics argue that blanket bans are less effective than individualized vetting. The Boulder attack, cited as justification, involved an Egyptian national, yet Egypt was not included, raising questions about the ban's logic. Advocates like Sean Vandiver emphasize that Afghans under the SIV program are among the most vetted populations, undermining claims of security risks. International and domestic reactions. International responses. The travel ban has elicited varied reactions from affected countries. Venezuela Foreign Minister Iván Gil Pinto labeled the ban an operation of hate and stigmatization, noting its impact on the 55,000 Venezuelans who received U.S. visas in 2023. African Union, the AU expressed concern about the ban's potential negative impact on interpersonal relationships, commerce, and diplomacy. Somalia. Somalia's ambassador took a conciliatory approach, pledging dialogue to address U.S. concerns, despite the country being labeled a terrorist safe haven. Chad. President Idris Deby's decision to halt U.S. visas signals escalating tensions, particularly after Chad's demand for the removal of U.S. troops in 2024. Domestic sentiment on X. Reactions reflect polarized views. Supporters, like at Doja_Nusrgov, praised the ban as a necessary defense against terrorism and visa overstays, citing high overstay rates in countries like Chad, 49%, and Haiti, 30%. Critics, such as at Real Tuck Frumper and at Softail65, condemn the ban as discriminatory and politically motivated, with some humorously noting omissions like Russia. The White House's own post framed the ban as a fulfillment of Trump's campaign promise to secure borders, quoting him directly. Domestic advocacy groups such as Afghan EVAC highlight the ban's impact on vetted Afghans awaiting resettlement, while Democratic lawmakers like Judge Paul call for resistance, arguing the policy undermines American values. Legal outlook. The 2025 travel ban is likely to face legal challenges, but its prospects for surviving scrutiny are stronger than in 2017. The Supreme Court's 2018 ruling in Trump v. Hawaii affirmed the president's broad authority to restrict entry for national security purposes. The 2025 ban's structured rollout, reliance on agency reports, and inclusion of exemptions for green card holders and existing visa holders aim to address previous legal vulnerabilities. George Fishman suggested that lower courts attempting to block the ban would likely be overturned, accusing them of virtue signaling. However, critics may challenge the ban's proportionality and evidence base, particularly the inclusion of countries with low visa issuance or questionable security risks. District Judge Allison Burroughs has already enjoined the proclamation pending further litigation, indicating early resistance. Broader context: Trump's immigration agenda. The travel ban is part of a broader immigration crackdown in Trump's second term, including blocking asylum claims at the southern border, canceling temporary protected status for immigrants from crisis-affected countries, restricting foreign student visas at Harvard University, and mandating social media screening for visa applicants. These policies align with Trump's campaign promises to prioritize America first and reduce immigration, both legal and illegal. The ban's focus on visa overstays and vetting deficiencies complements efforts to deport individuals already in the U.S. as outlined in Executive Order 14161. Impacts on affected populations. The ban could affect millions, particularly from countries with significant U.S. diaspora populations. Venezuela, with nearly 800,000 Venezuelans granted U.S. visas over the past decade. Partial restrictions will disrupt family reunification, work, and education plans. Haiti, the ban exacerbates challenges for Haitians fleeing gang violence. With over 852,000 living in the U.S. as of February 2024. Afghanistan, while SIV holders are exempt, tens of thousands of Afghans in the resettlement pipeline face delays or barriers impacting families and U.S. allies. A Myanmar teacher in Thailand, accepted into a U.S. State Department exchange program, expressed frustration over the ban's impact on her educational plans, highlighting its ripple effects on individual aspirations. Critical analysis: is the ban effective? While the Trump administration touts the ban as a critical security measure, its effectiveness is debatable. The 2017 ban did not demonstrably reduce terrorism risks, as most U.S. terror incidents involve domestic actors or individuals from non-banned countries. The Boulder attack, used as justification, involved an Egyptian national, yet Egypt's exclusion undermines the ban's logic. Critics argue that resources would be better allocated to enhancing individualized vetting, which is already rigorous for groups like SIV applicants. Moreover, the ban's broad scope risks alienating allies and straining diplomatic relations, potentially undermining U.S. influence in regions like Africa and the Middle East. The inclusion of Venezuela, despite recent cooperation on deportations, suggests political motivations, as does the exclusion of countries like Russia, which Trump has sought to engage diplomatically. Conclusion: President Trump's 2025 travel ban represents a significant escalation of his immigration policy, targeting 19 countries with full or partial restrictions. Framed as a national security measure, it builds on his first-term bans but adopts a broader geographic scope.